What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tech Thursday. And it's Friday, but we missed it yesterday. So we are doing Tech Thursday on Friday. And today we are talking brakes, when you need to replace them, when you need to get them serviced, and everything you want to know about your brake system on your vehicle. So let's get started with Tech Thursday on Friday. And so we are talking about brakes. And so on your vehicle, whether you've got a car, truck, SUV, doesn't matter. Your brakes are super important, and we need to figure out what you need to do on your brake system and to keep it properly maintenance, when you need to get it serviced, and what you need to do to take care of those brakes, because your brakes take care of you. So we are going to take a look at all that information today. We're going to start off just with some information about the brake system. So vehicle brakes are what stops your car. Imagine that. And we are going to take a look at some of the components in that system and kind of what you need to do to take care of that brake system in your vehicle. So first, let's throw this up. This is just a little chart that we found online that has your brake system. It kind of shows you the different components of the brake system, including the rotors, and the rotors are the big round part, and that's kind of what it's attached actually to the axle of the vehicle. And then you've got your brake pads, and that's what squeezes onto that rotor and actually slows the vehicle down. So both of those are super important. You've got pistons. The pistons are inside of the brake shoes, and those pistons push the brake pads in contact with the rotor. And as you push them, there's more pressure there, and that's what slows and stops your vehicle. You've also got different components, anti-rattle clips. You've got the dust boot that kind of sits around that. You've also got the brake calipers, your pistons, your brake pads. And when we talk about maintenance on your brake system, there are a few of those that often you'd never need to touch, and several of them that you repeatedly need to have repaired and touch. So probably the most repaired and replaced vehicle part in the brake system is, of course, the pads. And those brake pads are what sit on the calipers and push against that rotor. And that rotor is a solid piece of metal. They're heavy. I mean, if you pick them up, ooh. So that's a solid piece of metal that these brake pads press against. And as they press against them, of course, it slows your vehicle down. Well, hopefully. So those are kind of the two main components. Now, your brake pads are going to wear out quicker typically than your rotors, but you do need to pay attention to your rotors. And so when you bring your vehicle in for service, we are always going to check the thickness of the pads, and we're also going to check the way the rotor is. And there are certain times when that rotor needs attention. And attention on the rotor means either replacing it or machining it. So when we talk about that, and I think I've got... I thought I had... No, I don't. That's awesome. I thought I had a different slide for y'all, but I don't. So I'll just do it this way. I'll explain it like this. So that brake rotor is a pretty solid piece of metal. But at times there is a necessity to get that either repaired. And basically it's just a lathe. It just kind of smooths out the surface of the rotor, because sometimes those rotors will become warped. They'll wear differently. They may even become damaged. So we will check those when you come in. But that rotor is a big, solid piece of metal. And basically, to resurface a rotor, you're shaving off some of that metal to make it even. And so when we do that, we're going to inspect it and make sure that everything's good to go on that. Now, you can only do that, you can only shave that down a little bit, and then you'll have to replace your rotors. And it's not a huge job, but you need to pay attention to that. And one of the ways that you know that maybe your rotors need attention, is maybe you push on the brake and you can feel it pulsating. And that's because maybe your rotors are out of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, out of balance. They're not even, and so as they rotate onto the pads, you'll feel that vibration. So if that's happening, you have a choice of either replacing those rotors, or you can machine them down so that they are level and flush. So when the pads engage, it's a nice smooth stopping. You've also got, as we switch back to the diagram, because we like us some diagrams here on, where are we? Tech Thursday. And so when we look at this, you've also got the caliper, and the caliper is kind of what houses the actual brake pads. So that caliper wraps around the rotor, and then the pads are inside of that caliper, and that's what actually moves and applies pressure to, with the pads against the rotors. And so sometimes you will be looking at wanting to change at if there's some kind of damage within the pistons, in the calipers, that don't engage properly, or maybe you just want them different colors. You can get different color ones too. But maybe you want to change those calipers, and that's not a huge deal. You just remove them off. But there are some things to pay attention to. The tolerances there on the brake system, you want to make sure that you get those installed properly. That's why, of course, we recommend that you come and see us. If you need a brake job, if you need to get your calipers checked, or you need to get your pads changed, it's not a hard job, but it can take you a while if you haven't done it before. So if you've got that job, come see us. We'll take care of you. So we've got the rotors. Now we've got the calipers. And then you're talking about the pads. And there's different kind of pads. And we're going to talk about the different kind of pads. And I'm going to flip over here to my notes, which you can't see, but I can see them. So sometimes when you apply the brakes, you're going to hear in your vehicle, you hear them squeak, right? And there's a difference between, my vehicle's squeaking when I apply the brakes, or when I apply the brakes and maybe it pulsates, maybe it shakes. There's some different things that can happen that kind of clue you into, hey, I need to get my brakes looked at. So sometimes your brakes may squeak, and it's just a temporary issue. And what that means is, who knows, maybe there's dust in between the caliper and the brake pad, between the rotor and the pad. There could be something stuck in there and it's just not lining up right. And sometimes that's a temporary thing. Sometimes it goes away. Sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, bring them in. If you've just gotten your brakes done and you notice that you feel pulsation, or you feel something that's just not right, that could be installed incorrectly, there's clips that hold those brakes on, the pads into the calipers. So if you just got them done and you hear that, you could hear that noise. Now there is also different brake material. So just because you hear a brake squeak does not necessarily mean that you need the brakes replaced or that there's something wrong. That could mean just maybe you're using. Sometimes that could just mean that you're using a material, maybe it's a metallic or ceramic materials in your brakes, and they may tend to make a little more noise. So if you've upgraded your brakes from the factory system into aftermarkets, or you've got a high-performance vehicle and you put ceramic brakes on, there are some things that they may squeak when you stop. Sometimes that's normal. A lot of times it's not, though, but it kind of depends on, if I've just had my brakes done and it makes noise and I've got ceramic pads on the vehicle, or I've got upgraded brakes, maybe that noise is normal. There are a couple of things that you can do to try and alleviate that noise, but in some systems that just makes noise. Or if they make noise and if it sounds more like a metallic, maybe a scraping noise, or it wasn't doing it for the past however many miles and now it started to do it, there are also what's called wear indicators in the brake pads. And those wear indicators are basically, metallic tabs, and what they do is as the brake pad wears down through friction like this, friction like that, as they wear down, they indicate that hey, you need to replace these, because it gets to that wear indicator, which is typically a noise that you'll hear. Now, when you hear a noise that's like metal on metal, yeah, you waited a little bit long. And what happens then is not only do you have to replace the pads, often you have to replace the rotors, and even at times replace those calipers that are holding that on there because you waited too long, then damage occurs. So you never want to ignore your brakes. Don't do that. So, guess what? Time for a commercial. So again, this is Dennis. We're at Melloy Auto Group. I don't even think I said that at the very beginning, did I? I didn't even say that, Izzy. What's wrong with me? So this is Dennis, Melloy Auto Group in Los Lunas. Oh, I got it right at the bottom there. It says Melloy. We've got Chevrolet, Ford, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and a whole bunch of used vehicles. We've got 3 certified service departments, parts departments, whatever vehicle you're looking for, whatever part you're looking for, we can probably get it. Our websites, had to cough. Our website's MelloyFord.com. That's for the Ford store, in case you didn't know. MelloyChevrolet.com, Chevrolet store. And Melloy Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram is actually MelloyCJDR.com. So if you've got an issue with your vehicle brakes, you need parts, you need service, you need to get a brake system scheduled to get looked at, go online. You can schedule on there, or you can give us a call. 505-866-3100 is our Melloy Ford store. 505-866-3000, Melloy Chevrolet. 505-866-2900. That's our Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram store. So if you need some vehicle service done, you need your brakes serviced, whatever, give us a call. Yeah, that's the commercial. Now, back from our commercial break. So we were talking just about kind of metal to metal if you wait to take care of your brakes. But if your brakes are squeaking and you know, there's a couple of things that I'll tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this thing online, and I'm not going to show you the webpage because it's kind of anyway. I'm not going to show you this, but there are some websites that say, oh, if your brakes squeak, you can start by using grease as lubrication. So should you use grease as lubrication on your brakes? Well, I'm going to say no unless you know what you're doing. Talking about making your brakes stop squeaking does not mean that you put grease on your brake pads or on your rotors, so that those surfaces don't rub against each other, because that means your car won't stop. So don't do that. Little safety tip from your friend Dennis here at Melloy: don't put grease on your brakes. Now, there are some components within there. There's a backing plate on the pad. There's some different parts that maybe could use lubrication. But unless you know what you're doing, don't put grease on your brakes, please. Just a little safety tip from me. Now, sometimes you will hear a noise when the brakes engage, and that's the calipers, the caliper part that goes around the rotor that holds the brake shoes. When it's going like this to apply the brakes, you may hear a squeak. Now, there are some things that you can lubricate. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, just bring it into us. There's the pins that hold them on there. There's some stuff that we could look at. So if you've got an issue with that, I just tell you, don't put grease on your brakes. How's that? Now, there are some other reasons. For instance, if you've got, so your rotor's here and you've got your brake pads that you've just installed, and maybe they're not perfectly flat and flush against each other when they apply, you may hear a squeak. There are some things that you can do for that. There's shims you can adjust the way that but again, that sounds like a lot of work. Don't do that. Just bring it to us if you've got that. Or if you've got, at the bottom line, if you've got the squeaky brakes and it drives you crazy, right? If you've got that happening in your vehicle, bring it to us. We're going to take a look at it and maybe suggest a different type of brake pad, maybe even suggest a different type of rotor. Maybe you've gone away from the factory rotors to an aftermarket part. Maybe it's just not working. So if you've got an issue with that, bring it in. But if you want to do it yourself, go ahead, have fun. I've tried to do it a few times, and I don't do that anymore. I just bring them in here. So those are the brake kind of components. So the most important thing to understand is that when you hear noises in the brakes, especially if you hear that wear indicator noise, which is, the squeak where you didn't hear maybe the squeak before when you apply your brakes. Now some vehicles, they just, because of the materials they use, the ceramic pads or the metallic pads, they may just squeak. We can do everything that we can do to fix that for you, but depending on the materials that you use, that just may be how it is, especially if you've got a performance vehicle or you've upgraded the brake system. So just a quick recap on brakes. We're talking about brakes on Tech Thursday on Friday. I tell you why it's on Friday is because yesterday us and the gang here went to a rodeo yesterday, and right here in Los Lunas we went to a rodeo, the Taos Muncie Invitational Rodeo, and we took a couple of trucks over and watched some rodeo last night. And so we were doing that yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to get in front of the camera here and tell you about brakes. So it's Tech Thursday on Friday. Sorry for the delay. So just a quick recap. This is your brakes. This is kind of the brake system, and of course, there's more to it, right? You've got the hydraulics that come, the brake lines that come in there. You need to check your brake fluid and make sure that it's in good shape, kind of like your engine oil, right? You don't want your brake fluid to be burnt or dirty, and we're going to check that when you bring your vehicle in. But if you notice that brake pedal, when you apply the brake pedal, and it maybe goes all the way down to the floor, something like that, there may be a problem with the actual components of the brake, maybe even in low fluid. So that's something that you can check on a lot of vehicles. There's a brake reservoir right at the top of the engine, and you can take a look at that. So what else? Oh, that's it. So if you've got some brake issues, come on in. We can take care of you. We've got factory authorized technicians and parts. But if you choose to do it on your own and it doesn't work out, then call us and we'll take care of you. So this is Dennis. It's been Tech Thursday. That was a short, sweet event, but we were talking about brakes, and the main thing is knowing when to stop. So I know when to stop today. This is Dennis at Melloy Auto Group in Los Lunas. You can check us out online at MelloyLosLunas.com. You can check our 3 websites, MelloyChevrolet.com, MelloyFord.com, MelloyCJDR.com. You can make service appointments right there. Or you can give us a call. And, if you're in the area, stop by and see us. We look forward to it. This is Dennis. This has been Tech Thursday. And here, I'll show you this. There you go. There's the sign for Tech Thursday. And that means we're done and out of here. Have a great day.